Brilliance Audio presents 108 Stitches, Loose Threads, Ripping Yarns, and the Darndest Characters from My Time in the Game, by Ron Darling. Performed by Malcolm Hilgartner. How far does this through line stretch? Well, for me, it reaches all the way back to 1883, when a journeyman catcher named Del Darling had a cup of coffee with the Buffalo Bisons of the National League, alongside future Hall of Famers Dan Brothers, Deacon White, Pud Galvin, and player-manager Jim O'Rourke. Darling collected 3 hits in 18 at-bats over 6 games, although if you described his short tenure in this caffeinated way, he wouldn't have had any idea what you were talking about. A cup of coffee? What the hell was that? This particular Darling would come back a couple years later and stick with Cap Anson's Chicago White Stockings, establishing himself as a reliable utility man, and he rates a mention here because of his name, which, in a sidelong way, also happens to be mine. See, like a lot of baseball-mad kids, I was in the habit of losing myself in the statistics and ephemera on the backs of the baseball cards I used to flip and trade with my brothers. I was a sucker for baseball history, and with a name like Darling, it was only a matter of time before I started scouring the pages of the baseball encyclopedia to see if there were any other Darlings who'd played the game. I suppose I would have done the same thing if my name had been Smith, or Jones, or Molina. These days, of course, I could do a search online and see if I shared not only a name, but a birthday with any of the all-time greats, or a hometown, or a hobby. But when I was a kid, our search engines were pretty much confined to alphabetical order, a familiar crutch I'll lean on as these pages develop. What's worth remarking on Del Darling's otherwise unremarkable career, which spanned a total of 175 games over parts of 6 seasons, was how it ended, and, relatedly, how it bumped against a story that made an indelible mark on what was left of my childhood. Here's the front end of that tale. About a year after his final big league game, Darling married a woman from his hometown of Erie, Pennsylvania, named Anna Crum. The couple wound up having 7 children, but before all those kids started piling up, my namesake made a whole new name for himself when he was connected to a series of railroad heists that seemed to borrow a page from the stagecoach robberies that had once been a sad fact of life in the wild, wild West. Allegedly, Darling and the other suspects would hide out on these passenger trains, and while everyone slept or drank or stared at the passing scenery, they'd toss luggage and other belongings from the moving cars. Then they'd hop off the train and double back to assess and collect their ill-gotten gains. Quite a legacy, huh? No, it's not like we're related or anything, but I had enough trouble wearing a name like Darling when I was growing up, so it's not like this black mark would have done me any favors if I thought to mention this loose connection to any of my friends. It turned out Darling's role in these robberies might have been overstated, because he was released shortly after his arrest, together with several of his former teammates, including a somewhat more accomplished ball player from Erie named Lou Bierbauer. With that bit of unpleasantness behind him and the stain on our good name not as bad as it first appeared, Darling tried to latch on with another professional club, eventually retiring to Erie, where he found work doing odd jobs, mostly as a blacksmith and painter. He died just after the birth of his 7th child, at the age of 42, quite possibly from the long-term effects of an old baseball injury, according to some newspaper accounts,